Good evening, everyone. Welcome Town Hall guest, Chancellor HAEFNER, and our distinguished panelists. Today kicks off what is no doubt the most unique homecoming weekend in DU's 156-year history. Normally, we're gearing up for campus programs and exciting athletics events, but current health restrictions prohibit us from being able to celebrate in the way that we normally do. This year's homecoming includes stellar virtual programming and is kicked off with this panel of distinguished alumni reflecting on their journeys and the Chancellor sharing a bit of his vision for the DU student experience. I would encourage you to visit homecoming.du.edu to learn more about all of the great events taking place this week. It's not too late to register for the events to come. A couple housekeeping items and then we will jump right in. This event is being closed captioned. We will have plenty of time for Q&A at the end of this event. So please leverage the Q&A button that's at the bottom of your screen and feel free to ask questions along the way. And finally, sit back and enjoy. As an audience member, all videos are off and microphones are off. So hopefully this is a welcome break from your normal Zoom day. And we look forward to hearing from our Chancellor and distinguished alumni. And with that, it's my honor to introduce the 19th Chancellor of the University of Denver, Dr. Jeremy HAEFNER.
Well, thank you, Brandon. And thank you all for joining us on this very special kickoff to our homecoming week that we have, albeit modified because of the circumstances we find ourselves in. But that is no at all diminishes my enthusiasm for what you're about to participate in. We have three exceptional alums that are joining us today. IMRAN Khan, Jessica Lopez, and H. Andre Thomas. In a minute or two, you'll hear from them and really dive into their careers and their experiences, both as professionals and as students at the University of Denver. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining us, and I hope that you'll find this richly rewarding as we go through today's event. Just so you know, I'm going to give a little bit of a brief outline of this vision that Brandon just alluded to, an outline of the four-dimensional experience. And then I'm going to introduce the panelists a little bit more in depth and each give them a leading question that I think will get at today's topic. And we should have time at the end of the hour for any Q&A, as Brandon mentioned. So please do be thinking about your questions and put them in the Q&A box. So let me go ahead and get started. And very soon, Imran, Jessica, and Andre and I will start this conversation about their success and how they achieved by activating various different dimensions of their lives, of their experiences. And those dimensions are their character, their intellect, the professional development, and the skills that they use to create a network, and of course, their well-being. These four dimensions are also guiding us on this exciting new initiative that we are labeling the four-dimensional experience. Our vision with this initiative is really to activate and empower our community, particularly our students, to really become resilient and courageous champions of the public good and leading lives of purpose and passion and having those fulfilling careers. You're gonna have a chance to meet three of our alums who have done just that. But the four-dimensional experience is an intentional way of really making sure that our students, when they graduate, are equipped to have those lives of purpose. Because what it's all about, in essence, is about connecting the intellectual growth that our students naturally have through the wonderful academic programs and the faculty that we have here with professional development, character exploration, and well-being development. It's about taking advantage of the co-curricular environment that we know students partake in here and being very, very intentional with it. What do I mean by being intentional? What we expect our students to do is really build a pathways from the moment they really get to the University of Denver, whether they're undergraduates or graduates, to build intentional pathways of purpose in their co-curricular experiences and their curricular experiences through these 4 different dimensions. So it's like having a co-major, if you will, that accompanies the major that they'll have in their academic setting. So they'll have an academic curriculum, they'll have programming through workshops, they'll have experiences like the study abroad or by internships, they'll have mentorships, and they'll have access to, of course, so many different features that our students have today and will exploit in the future. We actually began a pilot of the 4-dimensional experience with 133 brave first-year students. They're in our 7 to 8 of our freshman seminars that we have as a crown jewel for the university. And they're really starting to explore what it means to be a 4-dimensional student. The faculty that are teaching these first-year seminars are customizing their curriculum, still bringing in the topic of their passion, but putting it in a 4-dimensional framework, helping students map out really their 4 years of experiences that they'll have at the university. They're going to be building skill sets and competencies along the way that they wouldn't intentionally otherwise manage. And it will be so invaluable to them when they graduate, because they'll be able to narrate a story of their totality of their experiences at the University of Denver that will put them heads and shoulders over all the other graduates from other universities and colleges here. This is just the beginning. This pilot will grow over the years so that it will be universal and have access to all of our students. I want every student to have the 4-dimensional experience, but we want to go even beyond that. We want to talk about the whole experience for our faculty and staff as well. So there's emerging conversations entitled 4 Dimensions for All, and really thinking about this from a cultural revolution at the University of Denver. Let me go into a little bit more into these 4 different dimensions, just so you get a good flavor of it. And our panelists then can really tie in some of their ideas back to their intellectual growth, for example, which is at the core of the 4-dimensional experience. After all, we have world-class faculty and incredibly stimulating, challenging academic degrees that are constantly being updated. Our faculty have developed incredibly close ties with our students thanks to the low student to faculty ratio that we enjoy. And our professors have really become mentors to our students. And we're going to build on that for the 4-dimensional experience. But what I really like about the intellectual development here at the university, it enables our students to really explore the passions that they come with, or the passions that they discover while they're here, and really activate that learning as they become graduates of the university. What about wellness? Well, we're in the midst of a pandemic, and it's putting incredible strain, of course, on our mental and physical well-being. So this is the optimal time to really be educating our students about the importance of well-being. And what aspects of that do I mean? Well, mental health, of course, physical well-being, of course, but also the need to be financially aware, right? How do you form a budget, and how do you make sure you manage your money in a time of a pandemic, especially? I think we've all discovered the joys of being outdoors in a time when we're socially distanced. And I think that becomes even more important nowadays to help our students appreciate nature and that social well-being, the need to connect with others. It's challenging, of course, in COVID-19, but all the more important to help our students explore that. So wellness is really, really important. We've made great progress, though, in professional development, the 3rd dimension of the 4-dimensional experience, because we've actually built a whole new building and a whole new set of programs to help our students explore fulfilling careers. The brand new Burwell Center for Career Achievement, which just opened up a couple of weeks ago, is all about creating connection and nexus for alumni, employers, and our students. And it's in that space that students will work with mentors to really get the coaching they need to explore a very successful launch of a career, and likely to be several careers coming forward on that. They'll have opportunity to do internships and of course explore entrepreneurship. That'll be so important to that professional development. And finally, one that I'm particularly excited about is the exploration of character. I think in this day and age where we've struggled with the kind of dialogue we need to really understand ourselves and to understand others, this notion of exploring what character is all about is increasingly important to us. For me, I think of the 3 R words: resiliency, respect, and responsibility. But it's also about taking courage. It's also about being aware of yourself and others. It's taking advantage of knowledge on how you navigate conflict. And especially important is how you become aware of the multicultural components in our lives these days that are so important and increasingly in that regard. So those 4 dimensions, intellect, character, well-being, and profession, really are the foundations of our 4-dimensional experience. We're starting it this fall quarter and only going to grow it beyond that to great success. Like our alums that I'm now really pleased. And I'm going to start with my good friend IMRAN Khan, who you see right there. There he is, smiling away. He's our first panelist. He came to the University of Denver from Bangladesh in 1996 to pursue his degree in finance and economics. He has gone on to do some incredible things with his career. He's been part of several significant IPOs, including Alibaba and Snap. He's launched a brand new venture called Verishop, which is an e-commerce platform that combines quality curation and discovery. And now he's my boss because he sits on the board of trustees as well. So you can imagine I'm going to treat him with great respect. Welcome, Imran. It's a pleasure to have you joining us today.
Thank you. You were always the boss, Jeremy.
So Imran, I want to provoke a little reflection on your part. And you've built this amazing career navigating through a variety of industries and ventures of all different sizes. You know, agility and resilience are skills that are in high demand and ones that we hope to foster in the 4-dimensional experience of our students. So thinking about your story, what has enabled you to navigate and achieve the levels of success you have had, regardless of the size or the type of company that you're working for? What traits have you embraced along the way that has really attributed to your success?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for having me. Happy homecoming. I'm sad that we can't be in the University of Denver campus. So first of all, I think you have been very kind. You know, I think regardless of my small, achievements, I think what I've seen with a lot of people who actually have done bigger and better thing. One of the big trade is, in my opinion, and it served me well, is really have the courage to fail. Because no matter what you do, oftentimes what hold us back, it's our fear of failure. And the moment you can win the fear of failure, then you really don't have a lot to lose, and that's really important. Whether it's presenting in front of your classmates or going to go ask for a bigger challenge in professional life, I think first and foremost, you really have to win the fear of failure. And then the second thing is really, I think it's super important. It's to be passionate about what you enjoy doing. I think if someone is not passionate about it, they will never be successful. Perfect example, when I was a kid, my dad really wanted me to be a tennis player. And unlike Jessica, I'm terrible in sports and never had the passion and never being successful on it. So I think it's really important, whatever you do, you have the passion. You're not doing it to make somebody happy because you want to do it. And I think that's very important.
So Imran, do you remember, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here. Sorry about this, but you know, you mentioned to have this courage to fail. And I'm just curious, you know, think back to your time here at the University of Denver. Was there a moment where that was that character attribute, if you will, was tested for you, and you now reflect on it and say, well, that's a moment that I really saw as a moment to have that courage?
In many different ways, I think. So first of all, starting with coming to the US for school, that is one big step. But along the road, a lot of many small things on a professional, from the classes I took, some of the classes I struggled, and because probably I didn't have the passion, but I had the courage to take those classes. And second is joining my fraternity. I never heard what fraternity was. It was completely a foreign concept. The only reason I joined because those guys were suddenly very nice to me, and I was like, okay, that's a good way to make friends. So I think that was and honestly that really helped me build some lifelong friends. Guys like Eric Matizik or Kyle Stahls, many of you know. So I think that's only was possible because I had the courage to join. Or going to like ski week, winter carnival and things like that. Going to and trying to learn how to ski. For a person who grew up in a very warm country, never seen snow. So all of those things, the small things, I think. Is I think it's a really important thing is don't be embarrassed of failure. I think there are a lot of people sitting on the sideline and criticize you for failure or for not doing the right thing or for not doing the great thing. But very few people try to do the things. So if you don't try to do the things, you're never going to do it. So it's better to try and fail or not do it super well, but at least you try.
Perfect. Perfect. That's exactly what our students need to hear. So thank you for that. All right. I'm going to turn to Jessica next here. And, Jessica, in many ways, the four-dimensional experience was really built on the model student athlete, right? Because there's a set of experiences where you have to develop teamwork, you have to develop leadership, you have to develop time management skills. All of these things fit into professional development and well-being, and of course, character exploration. So I'm really excited to talk with you. Now, Jessica, for the people who are joining us, is a 3-time Olympic gymnast and Olympic finalist. So she's got the creds here to talk about what it takes to succeed athletically. While she was at the University of Denver, she was awarded the Pioneer Sportswoman Outstanding First-Year Student Athlete in 2006, the Most Valuable Player in 2007, 2008, and wait for it, 2009. All that while earning a BA in psychology and minors in business administration and communication. So you were juggling a lot of balls while you were at the University of Denver. You were inducted into the Colorado Sportswoman Hall of Fame, and then also, of course, into the University of Denver Athletics Hall of Fame after graduation. So we're really interested in exploring your experiences relative to your success and, of course, to the time that you had at the University of Denver. So when you think back when you were competing athletically at the highest level of competition against the best in the world, right? Can you speak to what it took for you to compete at that level? What aside from the tremendous amount of training, does it take to be successful at this highest level of competition? And how did you reflect on that perhaps in your time at the University of Denver too?
Yeah, well, first, thank you so much, Chancellor, for having me here. It's an honor to be here among this amazing group of people. And, to answer your question, let me first take you back to where and how I began my gymnastics career, because there are key components in my journey that will explain what it takes. I was born in Caracas, Venezuela, and I began gymnastics when I was 3 years old, just, playing like any other kid, full of energy. And then when I was 10 years old, I was recruited by Romanian coaches to be part of the Venezuelan national team. And that meant that I will have to leave my parents and sisters and move in with my new teammates and coaches. And training consisted on 7.5 hours a day and Sundays off, and obviously still going to school. So I will only see my parents twice a month, and that was very hard for a 10 years old. But I still stay connected with my family and our family values. So there I was, 10 years old, in a super competitive environment with another 14 girls, and all of us working together toward the same goals. So, in that kind of environment, you had to work really hard to stand up. As a gymnast, I was not like the most talented or stronger or flexible, but I worked really hard and I was very determined and I believed in myself. And I knew what I wanted. I already had a vision and I knew I wanted to go to the Olympics and I knew I wanted to come to the United States. And at least I played with that idea in my mind already. So my first Olympic trials was actually in 2003 and they were in California. But I was struggling with a back injury and I was not physically ready to compete, so I did not qualify. However, during that Olympic trial, I connected with a coach from Colorado that had been my coach while growing up. So I came to Colorado for a training camp, and at his gym, that's how I connected with the coaches from the University of Denver. So we kind of started the recruiting process. So you can already see there how my passions and my dreams kind of led me to have this amazing opportunity. And I was very excited. And at that time now, my priority was to learn English. And as you can all imagine, my first quarter as an undergrad was tough. Looking back, it definitely took some courage to leave my country and attend college in a foreign language. And as a student athlete, you have to be a full-time student, and also you have to train 20 hours a week. But thank you to the amazing resources and the people that I connected with along the way, I was able to have a successful college career and a positive experience. And without a doubt, my experience as a student athlete helped me grow into a confident woman. And I learned how to connect with the team, how to connect with people, build relationships. And I also became more resilient and self-aware of who I was and my potential. So later after graduation, I wanted to be a professional athlete. So I dedicated myself to the sport of gymnastics. And in my journey as a professional athlete, discipline and knowledge were key components that took me to be amongst the best. For me, it was not just about going to the gym and putting in the numbers, just like you said. For me, it was more than that. It was just, I took it very seriously. And I studied the sport inside out. I was constantly researching about how to improve my performance, my well-being, physically, emotionally, intellectually, socially. And I didn't just rely on my coach. I was very curious and obsessed with the little things. So when the big moment came, I was so well prepared and educated and aware of all aspects of my training that my confidence was very high. But once you go through the process of trying to make those dreams reality, you hit obstacles. And I think, unfortunately, because of the pressure, anxiety, or responsibilities, whatever the case may be, some people kind of like give up on those dreams somewhere along the line and they just stop. In my mind, I worked so hard that giving up was never an option. And I was always looking for how can I make things happen? And personally, one of the biggest obstacles that I faced was back in December 2015. It was actually 4 months before the Olympic trials. I was dealing with an illness that, almost took my life. And I spent like week and a half in the ICU during Christmas and New Year's. And, the road to the Olympic trials was very tough. I was, of course, very weak, but I did not give up. Like, no one time in my mind I thought about giving up. I had a purpose, and I was committed to my goals, and I knew inside myself that I could do it. And I ended up qualifying for the Olympics. And before the Olympic Games in Rio, I spent a month and a half in Germany, where I was like getting ready for the Olympics, and training was tough, really tough, physically, mentally, but it is all part of the preparation, and then it is kind of what builds your mental toughness. And the process, the planning, the actions that you take are so important. You definitely not going to, write down your goals and then you just kind of like wake up and think that things are going to happen. You have to like work. You have to work really hard and be intentional with your time. And, when you push for a goal and then you do the best you can, at the end, you can be very comfortable with your results because you know that you have worked really hard. And it's just like IMRAN was saying, like, you have to just go for it. You cannot just be afraid of failure. You go all out, you go all in, and you're comfortable with your results because you gave everything you had. So in my case, when I landed in Rio, my last Olympics, I truly embraced the moment. I took it all in. Every training, every day of competitions, qualifications, all around finals, bar finals, and I went into the competition and I was not intimidated by anyone anymore. I didn't have to think. I didn't have to look around. I really, truly enjoy myself. And I thrive under that kind of pressure situations because of that. And I hit my peak performance. And that was like really, really, truly amazing. So you asked me at the beginning, what does it take? Well, it takes, a lot of courage, determination, persistency, awareness, knowledge about what you're doing, discipline, and a lot of practice and hard work. Like everyone, I started at the ground level, and the journey is a constant up and down. But the beauty of it is having the persistence of working through every situation, and all those challenges and experiences help me build character traits that's the way I approach life right now. I approach life the same way. And it is so much fun because along the way, you work and connect with brilliant people, just like we are right now today. And you discover who you are, and then you meet people that see the world the same way that you do, and then you make great things happen. And, life is a never ending growing experience, and I just love it.
Wow. Well, Jessica, that was wonderful. I think what I didn't tell the panelists and preparing for today's town hall is that I'm going to recruit all three of you to become mentors for our students. So you're signed on for that one. I just want to follow up. It took a lot of courage to leave your family at age 10.
Yeah.
And, I often ask the first year students when I meet them to reflect on the values that their family taught them along the way, so that as they come into this four-dimensional experience, they have a grounding of where they came from. Do you look at your family and say a lot of your determination, your courage, your persistence, do you tie that back to your family at all, or how do you look at that?
Yeah, definitely. I tie that to my family a lot because growing up, I saw how hard my mom and dad worked. And I just grew up in that kind of environment where, they worked really hard and they were very loyal and they had a lot of integrity. So that's kind of like the environment that I grew up. And even when I went to the National Training Center, that was one of the things that they always talked about. Like, they actually didn't care so much about how well I did in gymnastics. They were kind of very nervous about how my education was going to be and like how my school education and also how my coaches were going to, treat my upbringing. And then that was one of the things that we always talked about on the phone. It was not so much about gymnastics or how I was doing gymnastics, but how was school, what I was doing. I was living through my family values and all that stuff. They were more interested in those aspects in my life than gymnastics. And gymnastics was just something that I had a lot of passion about, and I loved it. Yeah.
They were thinking about the whole person.
Yeah, definitely, all the time.
Fantastic. Okay, our final panelist is H. Andre Thomas, who goes by Andre. Andre, I got to meet just a little while ago. He invited me actually into his home and served a lovely lunch where I got to meet his wife and others. Andre, if you want to turn on your video and so everyone can find you, that would be great. So Andre achieved his Bachelor's of Science in Accounting and French while at the University of Denver. And he went on to earn his Master's of Business Administration, his MBA, from another pretty good university called Harvard University there. He began his career in the wireless industry in the early 90s. And he went on to found Wireless Ingenuity, LLC, which is a leading next generation wireless technology development company. He is also the former group planning director and chief strategist for Vodafone Group, PLC. So he has immense experience throughout the industry of telecommunications. He's led a rich life, and we are so blessed, Andre, that you are joining us today. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's great to be here. Great to be here.
So here's your question, Andre. You've studied accountancy, you've studied French, you went on to earn an MBA. You built a business with a global impact and incredible reach. What did that combination of that study, both at the University of Denver and at Harvard University, enable you to do within your career? And what both personally and professionally has enabled your success and growth in the industry that has changed so much in the 30 years that you've started there? Because telecommunications has been one of those most rapidly changing industries. Yeah. I think the students are really interested in any insight you might offer on approaching the career the way that you did. So.
Thank you. And thanks again for having me here today. I think as I thought about this question, Jeremy, I thought back to when I was in the 8th grade. And it was that year that my counselor told me that if I wanted to go to a great school, I needed to have a foreign language. And I got exposed to French. And it was in that early part of my education that I learned not only the new language, but other cultures. And I kind of carried that into my college experience. So accounting was something that I was very good at. I chose the University of Denver because of its School of Accountancy and its prowess in what was the Big 8 world. And when I thought about the combination of accounting and French, by that stage in my educational career, I realized that being differentiated was really important. I didn't just want to be an accountant. I wanted to be an accountant who could see other cultures, who could address dynamic issues. And my love and prowess in French allowed me to do that. That was a foundational thing. And I think it's important for students to understand that going to a university is not all about just the brand name of the school, but the skills that you pick up. And so the toolbox is really important. So in my toolbox, I had those two great tools. I then went on to Harvard because I'm naturally curious, and being an accountant was quite honestly exciting for a while, but I wanted to expand beyond that. And so I attended Harvard Business School, got my MBA. Harvard has a generalist approach to training CEOs that expanded me beyond the CFO world and opened my eyes again to differentiation. a core of numbers in my accountancy, a strength of cultural diversity and an ability to see beyond the American shores was really important for my career. And it opened doors. So, you know, at every turn, I was amazed and greatly grateful that I had as many opportunities that I had. And so from public accountancy, I entered into the wireless industry at its infancy and had an opportunity to see the world with those tools that I developed over the years. And so that's really what I would give back to the students as they think about their careers. If I had to think about 3 big things that came out of those tools over the course of the career, I had never left the United States until after I left Harvard. And my first opportunity was through Coopers & Lybrand at the time, the company that sent me to Harvard, had a client in Washington, D.C., the United States Agency for International Development. And I was chosen because of my numbers and my French to lead a team into Europe, into Eastern Europe, to do the very first Eastern European privatization deal. At that time, Lech Walesa was alive. Poland was trying to be the first Eastern European country to break out of the Soviet bloc. And my little team, led by me, was there to sell a steel company to an Italian company and take it private, if you will. And it was an amazing opportunity. Again, it was because of my number prowess, thank you, DU, and my exposure to French and the depth of that cultural experience that I had in learning that language over the course of some 9 years, that allowed me to go into that environment confidently and get that deal done. Another opportunity I had was after joining the wireless industry, we were hosting a delegation from Africa in San Francisco. And this delegation challenged our company at that time to, you know, as we were looking at countries to expand into, why not the continent of Africa? So I was tasked with that, trying to figure that out too. And it was at a time in the industry where South Africa was on the map. I traveled down with my wife and a team and had an opportunity to meet a number of advisors to Nelson Mandela. And I was very young at that time, but again, the exposure came from the skill set that I was able to bring to the table. And then the rest of it was for me to take advantage of. And the last one I'd share is, you know, later in my career, I was living in England and had an opportunity to participate in what still stands to this day as the world's largest hostile takeover, successful hostile takeover that was valued at about $200 billion. The company I worked for, Vodafone, was acquiring another company, Mannesmann in Germany. It was the first cross-border hostile takeover in Europe. And the whole deal was premised on my numbers. Thank you again, DU. And my ability to be in the right place at the right time in a culture that I did not grow up in, but one that was afforded to me because of the skill sets in my toolbox. I hope that helps.
Perfect. Wow. You know, there's just a rich set of takeaways that at least listening to your explanation there, Andre, that is really illuminating. First of all, you know, kudos to that 8th grade counselor who really influenced you to explore that language, because it really did serve you throughout your career. And that means that mentors do matter. So that's really wonderful. The fact that you combined, you know, a quantitative field like accountancy with French is really astounding. And, you know, 84% of our students here at the University of Denver graduate with multiple degrees. They're that passionate and they're that ambitious. The students that really graduate with perpendicular degrees like you do, we call those purple squirrels because they're really rare. And here's what happens when you're a purple squirrel. Great things, great opportunities open up like you just went through. I do have one question though. You know, those skills open doors for you, but you actually had to walk through those doors. You actually had to take advantage of them, as you said. So what can you say to our students about that? Did you learn that early on, that you should, if you see an open door, walk through it? But I think that's a lesson that many of our students, you know, could benefit from.
Yeah, I think, you know, humbly, I will tell you that, you know, the doors presented themselves and I had to choose. And in choosing, you know, life is a progression. You don't end up at the successful destination in the first stop. So I had the opportunity to walk through doors that were progressive, if you will. But I think my desire to walk through those doors came from watching my father, who was a pioneer of sorts, who went to college, had a degree in finance, and left the South in the 60s and moved to Denver and became, you know, the first African-American vice president of what used to be called the First National Bank of Denver.
Wow.
So in his shadow, I had the knowledge of what it took to grab onto an opportunity and to go for it all the way. And so throughout my career, whether it was Cooper's and Libran in Denver at first, then the opportunity to move to Silicon Valley and get involved with IPOs, led to Harvard, led to any number of different opportunities. It was one of just humbly always knowing myself enough to know when it was the right time and what was the right opportunity, but never ever constraining myself to limitations. I am an African American, and I say that not because there's any implied limitation, but because I know that I found myself in circumstances that were unusual. And so the lack of limitations in myself allowed me to walk through doors that were sometimes really, really big and gave me really, really big opportunities. So I took the limitations in my mind away and took those skills and went all the way. And that was really exciting. I'll never forget that trip to Poland when I, as the African American in the room, leader of the team, was standing there in this big old steel company with our Polish translators and being thanked for being able to be there to help them through what they were going through. But it was in that moment I realized that it's not really anything but the person who chooses to use those skills to make a difference. And so, you know, in the wireless industry, I think back to the time I joined, I was 29 years old, but I'd been given the opportunity to be an executive in what was then a publicly traded company that I had an opportunity to write an IPO for. And we visioned into the future, and that vision was bold. And so my company today, after all these years, has really garnered the skill of capturing all of those opportunities around the world with entrepreneurs of every culture, of every race. And what I look for most is the most incredible ideas, regardless of what they look like or where they came from, that will have the most positive impact on people's lives. And that excites me more than I can ever tell you. It carries the day.
Wow. That's powerful, Andre. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's, you know, I've often believed that that diversity, not just racial diversity, not just religious or spiritual or sexual diversity, whatever the case may be, gender diversity, but all kinds of diversity is an engine of great creativity, an engine of problem solving, an engine that I think really drives us forward in so many different ways. Andre, did you Do you see that now in the work that you're doing as an important aspect of the companies that you're leading or the companies you're engaged with at all?
Diversity?
Yeah, there's just the broad difference of ideas, of perspective.
Yeah. So I've now traveled to 42 countries around the world. And the thing I love the most is stepping out of the expected into the unexpected. There's nothing more humbling than going into an environment that you don't know with an anticipation that you're going to learn something from somebody who doesn't look like or act like you. It is in those interactions that I feel in the industry and the purpose of my company, which is finding the next great thing in the wireless industry, that I find those golden nuggets. And so the ability to see diversity as a powerful tool for ideas and change is something I totally believe in. And as you said, Jeremy, whether it's cultural or nationality or it's gender or whatever, when you get people to a place where, one, they understand that you appreciate where they're coming from, you'd be surprised what they're willing to share. And it's in that sharing that the greatest things can be accomplished. So that's kind of how I see diversity.
Perfect. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Now, I've got a couple more questions for all three panelists here. And, you know, your answers can be short, they can be long. But, you know, we've got 133 first-year students that are just piloting 4-dimensional student experience. We've got all the other first-year students and undergraduates out there undergoing experiences of all different kinds. What's the one piece of advice that you would give to our current students to really maximize their time on campus right now? What, you know, you've led these great careers, you've taken away great learning. What's the one piece of advice that you would have? Now, who will be courageous enough to go and jump in with that question? Jessica is. All right.
I can go. So one of the things that I mean, even right now with COVID and all that, I know it's a little bit difficult, but like kind of engaging themselves with the community and the activities that like this today, I think is they can take a lot of like, I mean, these are powerful messages. Even myself, I mean, wow, just kind of just listening to Andre for the past like 15 minutes. So my advice is just to get involved with the community and with the events that, you know, the university has to offer, and not just the academics, just kind of like have a whole experience.
Terrific, terrific. Lean in, take advantage, jump in. Imran, what about you? What would you say?
Along the same line, I think, you know, this is a very unique opportunity to build true friendship. You know, I think this is a 4 years you're in a common ground, you know, and so it's a really great opportunity to meet new friends and build relationship that will probably last forever in your life. So I think I would encourage everybody to get to know people, build new friendship, you know, learn about different people. They all come from, I think the best thing about college versus, you know, most high school, people come from all over the world and all different diversity, all different. One of the things that Andre talked about, you know, they bring ideas and thoughts that are very diverse. And I think it's a really interesting opportunity to learn from those. You know, I think one of the best thing about college is you learn as much from your community and from your fellow students as much as you learn from your professors. So so I think that's where it's very unique. So I think it's really important to take opportunity of that. It's not that much homogeneous thinking, because when you go get into a professional, a lot of times you're going to get stuck into homogeneous thinking because everybody's doing same thing. So in college gives an opportunity to people come from different background, different culture, different religion, different ethnicity, and also very different diversity of thinking. and really learning from everybody is really important. And some of the things that Andre talked about, it really resonated well with me.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to go to Andre next, but here's a question for the three of us or the three of you to think a little bit more about that. Just building on what Imran said there, and that is we live in a very, unfortunately, a polarized society right now. It seems as though it's very challenging to have those conversations with people we know we disagree with. And so the question is, what tips do you have for our students for navigating those kinds of conversations or being open to those differences? But before we come to that question, I'm going to go back to Andre here for his answer to the question that we started with is, what's the one piece of advice, Andre, you would give to our current DU students to really maximize their experience at the university?
So I would say that each student brings themselves and their life experiences across that gate or through the gate when they arrive. And I think the advice I would give is to know thyself, to love thyself, and to not be afraid to run with whatever those wonderful gifts you have are, even if they diverge, like mine. I loved accounting, but I also loved French. There could be a business person who loves dance. If those are if you know what those things are in yourself, the community will benefit from seeing the whole of you happy and exploring and growing. So that would be my advice.
Wow,
Okay.
terrific. I am taking away so many wonderful, gems here in this conversation. I got shivers going up my spine here, just thinking of all the contributions you were saying here. I'm going to circle back to that question, but there is a question that came up here from one of our attendees. They're thanking the panelists, of course, for doing this. They ask an interesting question for you. So let's look at this one. If you could travel back in time and give your 18-year-old selves one bit of advice, what would it now be? So use that time traveling machine that takes you back there. All right, so who's going to be the brave soul for that one here?
I'll jump in. I think the most important thing, is developing patience. I always said that, the best kind of human is who have the patience of an older person, but, I think, sometimes things just takes time, and be patient. And if you stay on the right course, you will get there. So I think that's really, really important to be patient and don't take yourself too seriously.
This question really does open up windows into your own personality. I'm just warning you in all of this. Okay, Jessica or Andre, which one? How would you go back, and what advice would you give your 18-year-old self in that?
Actually, I was gonna say the same thing. I would say don't take things so seriously, because I remember as an undergrad, like I took everything, every little detail so serious that, yeah, sometimes it takes away a little bit the enjoyment of things. So yeah, just not taking things so seriously. So.
It was kind of needed in that athletic determination. Andre, what about you?
So back in the day, and I've obviously graduated the longest time away. So as you get older, you get to realize that. But 35 years ago, having grown up in Colorado and had that great university experience, we used to have 3-day weekends. I don't know if you still do, Jeremy. Every Friday was off. And so if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, ski more. I was usually in the library on my Fridays studying ahead, and then I wish I had skied more. That's it.
That's great. That's concrete advice there in that case.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to come back to this notion of how do we help our students really open up and have the ability to listen to someone else where they have either a very fresh perspective or they may take a different point of view, that diversity of thought that Imran was talking about. You know, there is studies that show that this generation, Generation X, is actually more open-minded than perhaps previous generations like mine. And I find that very encouraging and hopeful, but that doesn't mean we can't help them really fulfill that potential that they bring to the table. Any thoughts from any of you of how we can help our students be open to divergent thought and listening to other people with differing views?
So if I could start, Jeremy, this one, I can remember, given my age, the 60s as a young boy. My parents were in their 20s and we were in Colorado, and we have all heard what happened in the 60s. And now I feel like, in a different way, as I talk to my own grown daughter now as a senior in college, that we're back in a way. And because of that, we have to look at where we are and not fight it, but see it and then be in it, which means we're here for a reason. And each person who's living at this moment, just like those people back in the 60s, my parents' generation, had to address those tough things back then. The Vietnam War, civil rights, you know, assassinations were the rule of the day back then of our leaders. And somehow we made it through. And so today, I think when you're having the conversation with somebody who may be different, maybe they just don't get it. And that's okay. Maybe they don't get you. But the way you get them to get you and everybody can move forward is to not be afraid of disagreeing and then hugging. Because until we talk and we talk about what everybody's all emotional about, we can't move forward. And we can't stay in our own corners either. And so I think it's a tremendous opportunity for people to just have that dialogue without fighting, but with the hope of unity. I'll just say one more thing. One of my French toolbox assets I have was a writer named Voltaire. And he had a lot of wisdom. And I was young when I stumbled upon it. But there's a quote he had that I found today was that every man is a creature of the age in which he lives. Every man is the creature of the age in which he lives. Well, to all our young people listening today, you are living now. This is happening now. This is your turn. And just know that we're going to make it through. Just know that.
Wonderful. Imran, Jessica, any other additions?
I thought that was a great call.
Perfect. That was awesome.
Well, I want to thank everyone. We are at the end of our hour. We just talked about some amazing careers of these three panelists that they've had, reflections on what they've learned throughout their careers, reflections of their time, and advice for our students here.